Hey everybody, this is So Many Sequels, and I am Josh.
I am Andrew.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David.
Woo! We did
That
it
was
all and
successful.
remembered our own names.
Like we've been
Today-
doing this for 30 years.
Well, sometimes you forget your own name.
I do.
Today on the show, we are continuing our adventure back into the MCU with Iron Man 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
What an incredibly
It's real.
unique and specific name for this film. No, that's fine. I'm just making fun of it. Although, is it the only one besides, let's see, the Guardians and Guardians Volume 2.
That's
Yeah,
a
but that's
Iron
like a
Man's the
theme.
only one that didn't have a
Subtitles.
subtitle.
Yeah. They just
Interesting.
went straight numerals, just 2
Yeah.
and 3.
Yeah.
The other ones had Dark World, Ragnarok, all that stuff. Volume 2, that's at least a unique way of saying, part 2.
Well, and they did
Yeah.
that. They did the volume 2 just because of how successful the mixtape thing
Yeah, the
was. So
mixtape
that was
premise.
volume 1 is the first mixtape, and then you have now 2,400. Like that's what they were doing.
It plays really well.
Iron Man 2 came out just a couple years after the first one in 2010 and is obviously a continuation of Iron Man. We're not very deep into the MCU at all. This is only the third film. It came right after The Incredible Hulk, also in 2008. So we've only seen Hulk and Iron Man so far. I don't even think, as an audience, people really understand what's being built right now, which makes it very exciting because there are nuggets and hints all throughout this movie. Some more blatant ones, like when Nick Fury shows up with the Avenger Initiative report. So Robert Downey Jr. obviously returns as Iron Man. We've got Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts. But this time we've got a brand new roadie. Don Cheadle takes over the role from Terrence Howard. And introducing in this film, Scarlett Johansson, the first appearance of Black Widow. And also we've got a nice villainous turn from Sam Rockwell and Mickey Rourke, who should not have been in this movie, but
No.
we'll get into that.
I don't think he,
What?
I
No,
don't think-
say it.
I don't think he spoke more than 10 words.
That's because he had a bad Russian accent that no
Ooh,
one could
he-
understand anything.
Almost all of his lines are in the trailer, except for him saying, "Hey man."
Yeah.
Like it's all the line. If you watch the trailer for Iron Man 2, he gets out most of his dialogue there, and then the rest of him in this movie is just him going, "Hey man," and then
I want
repeating
my
whatever
bird.
someone just
I
said. to
want
him.
my bird.
He just repeats what people say. It's great.
Right. So Iron Man 2 takes place in the aftermath of the first one. First one ended with Tony being like, hey, you know what? I am Iron Man. Busting the norm of superheroes in the past. And now, naturally, the U.S. government wants everything he has, because why wouldn't they? I don't
Sort
even
of a
know, Mickey.
realistic-
Yeah. There are other countries around the world are trying to create their own Iron Man suits to make war.
Not love.
And Mickey Rourke, who I don't even remember his name.
Ivan Vanko.
There you go. He's just mad. He just has a personal vendetta and wants to get back at
And the know-how.
Tony and the Starks.
Mhm.
So this movie is like Tony versus the government, Tony versus Russia Man, Tony versus Sam Rockwell, who literally just is the same character as Jeff Bridges in the first one.
I wouldn't say that. He's the same
He
character
is.
as Tony Stark in the first one. But if Tony Stark never had a humbling experience,
Right.
he's all. I mean, one of the funniest things
It's
about
just
this
another
movie-
big corporate guy who wants his suit. Like, it's
the
the same
crazy
concept.
thing about the Marvel universe as it was presented to us back then is that in this universe, weapons industrialists are like YouTube stars. Like they're all
Yeah.
dancing and jazzing, and everybody's like really interested in what weapons industrialists are doing. And I'm like, I couldn't name you a single weapons industrialist in the real world. Like,
No, I mean they're being interviewed by Vanity Fair.
yeah,
Hey, ain't no weapons industrialist ever been interviewed by Vanity Fair.
Hey.
To
If
my knowledge.
anything, it was just foreshadowing, because let's be real. I said when you were watching it earlier today, Tony is just Elon Musk. That's all
Yeah.
he is.
Oh,
in this
yeah,
movie.
yep.
Like, and we don't have a lot of Elon Musks right now because, well, we just don't. But you have mimickers, copycats. You know, the idea of the eccentric billionaire being a personality is definitely real today. Elon Musk is just the only one who knows how to build rockets.
And and did you guys catch Musk's cameo in this?
Mm-hmm.
No, I did not. He's in this?
He was at the racetrack.
He's at the racetrack.
Wow.
He stopped, like, Tony walks up to him. He goes, and he says, like, Elon. And he goes, and Elon's like, hello, Tony. I can't do Elon Musk's voice, but he's like, I got an idea for an electric rocket for you. And Tony's like, you do? Well, we'll get that to work.
No, I missed that. I guess it just didn't click with me that was really Elon Musk. I don't know that man.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't in 2010, definitely.
No, definitely not. But I think it's very prescient in that way that, like, yeah, this is what they go on to become.
Mm-hmm.
We'd all seen this movie before, right?
Yes.
Just most of us didn't remember it.
Yeah.
No, I remembered it pretty well.
I think I knew David would, but I knew Garrett didn't remember it, and I didn't really. And Andrew doesn't remember anything except random dates from the calendar.
And movies he's never seen.
And movies he's never seen. So, revisiting this movie after seeing the completion of the Infinity Saga, how do we feel about its place in the overall story?
I think it's okay. I wouldn't say it's not groundbreaking.
Agreed.
It's like it just continues the story of Tony, and along the way we get a very pissed off Russian.
Yeah, I mean it plants some important seeds through the introduction of Black Widow and the idea of the Avenger Initiative and all that, but they're really just hints at this stage. But they're important ones. They're important seeds. But I think overall, I would agree with you that it doesn't add a lot, but I don't think it really needed to yet.
It's like a filler movie.
Kind of.
I mean, like, but yeah, no, I totally get you. Like, there's a reason for it being here, but like,
right.
There's a reason.
It does the right things.
Yeah.
It's just on its own, it maybe could have been a little better. That's what I think, anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Next.
One of the common complaints that when the movie came out, like Andrew spoke, or at least around the time Avengers actually came out, when people would rewatch Iron Man 2, they would just talk about how all it is a setup for other movies. There's foreshadowing for Thor. There's foreshadowing for Captain America. Black Widow's here. War Machine's here. Nick Fury's here. The Avengers are in the background. All this stuff, right? And that was the big knock, was that Iron Man 2 isn't its own movie. It's a big setup for a bunch of other movies. Mm-hmm. And while I hear that complaint, I don't feel like any of the setup to me takes that much away from the actual film. Like the longest stretch where you could say it does is Nick Fury and Tony Stark talking. But that could be just as much seen as a deeper reveal about Tony's past. And maybe, in a world where Iron Man was being made separately from, say, Marvel Studios, and there weren't these big plans for Captain America, they weren't all these big plans for Thor and all these people to come in, this kind of movie probably wouldn't have looked this way. It probably would have been this Russian bad guy who has a vendetta against Tony, and that's your big bad guy for this movie. And that probably would have been about it. Maybe you get the stuff with War Machine, but you probably don't get Black Widow. I think it does. I think it's really interesting when you look at it on the grounds of continuing the theme we talked about last week, which is Tony rebuilding his legacy. So much so that Sam Rockwell's character, Justin Hammer, literally says the line, look, you tried to kill, like he says to Mickey Rourke's character, Ivan Mako, you tried to kill him. If you kill Tony Stark, you're just going to make him a martyr and you're going to make people love him more. If you want to kill Tony Stark, you have to kill his legacy. You need to destroy his reputation. You need to make people think that when he dies, people are relieved. And so that becomes sort of the villainous attack on Tony's personal story of redemption. And having now gone through, and we've seen Avengers Endgame, and we've seen the end of the full length of Tony's arc, this movie kind of has important building block elements. of Tony becoming, coming to terms with the idea of his mortality, where he's slowly dying here in this movie. And he manages to find a way to save himself thanks to bits of his past that he had forgotten. And so you start to see the little bit of seeds of what it's going to take for Tony to believe that he's redeemed himself. I think that performances are all fine. I think that Sam Jackson coming in after having like literally 2 lines in the previous film and kind of exploring this character that has never had his own film, aside from a David Hasselhoff movie in the 90s. I think that's all good. I think Scarlett Johansson's really good. And I think that the action is fine, but by the end of the movie, it gets a little muddy.
Yeah.
I think they took 2 different movies and put them into one, and they didn't put enough focus in either. Been thinking about this. I watched it this morning as we were recording, but I've been thinking about it since then. And I think they could have gone 2 different ways. You either have a movie with Mickey Rourke as the main bad villain, and you explore that background. Mm-hmm. Because I wrote in my notes that for the first half hour, I didn't know his name. I didn't know why he was mad at Tony. I didn't care why he was this big bad guy. Mm-hmm. And then later on in the movie, whenever you have that first big conversation with Nick Fury and Tony Stark, do you find out about Anton?
That's not true, but okay.
Well, no, you see his name at the blueprints, but you don't know who he is or what he does.
Well, but then Tony gets all this information up before he has his conversation with Rhodey.
When?
So there's a part where he's sitting in his
right,
car,
but they don't get into it. He briefly goes over
Jarvis
that.
reads off a whole list of things.
Yeah, that's like a half second of
that's on you.
Blink. It's a blink and you missed it. They don't. What I'm saying is they do not.
No, it's eyes open.
They don't evolve into it. It's a baseline surface level story.
Okay.
They don't get into the deep of it. They don't really do much of anything. Yeah. If you really wanted to do it, because it doesn't add anything to Mickey Rourke's character. He was already pissed off before I found out about that. Doesn't change anything. Mm-hmm. If you want me to have an emotional connection and believe that he's actually angry, then give me that full story. Give me flashbacks. Give me something more showing Howard and Anton working together and Howard being like, you're just in this for money. You're deported or whatever. Give me that. Don't just talk about it, because I don't care about Mickey Rourke. I don't care about that story. I also don't care about the government angle. I like that angle more. What I wish they would have done is made this movie a character build on Tony and that focus, because agreed, this movie should be about him coming to terms with his own mortality and not telling anybody. One of the things that he does throughout the whole movie is try to isolate himself because he knows he's dying. He goes off the deep end. That's what Tony does. He's always trying to isolate himself and piss off other people so they're not hurt if and when something were to happen to him. And he comes across as a dick, but he's doing it because he cares. The one person that he truly, genuinely cares about and wants to say how he feels is Pepper, and he doesn't know how because he doesn't do emotions. So you have 2 different kinds of struggles, and Pepper's pissed at him because he's acting like an idiot, and she's trying to rein him in. This is a more intriguing story to me than anything involving Mickey Rourke and that backstory. I don't care about it. It's not important. They easily could have written Mickey Rourke out of this and had some kind of backroom dealing with Sam Rockwell's character and Gary Shandling's character while Tony is in the process of dealing with all of these different emotions as he struggles to fight his death, his impending slow death. Right. Then he realizes that stuff is going down, changes things, gets back into it, and that is the movie that I wish we would have gotten, because you get more deep into Tony. You have the government aspect of it, because later, whenever Tony is on the government side, that will be another turning point. And there's so much they could have done with it. But instead, they gave me half-hearted dual storylines and tried to connect them in a way that didn't work. I didn't think this movie was as bad as I remember. I was entertained, but that's because I rewrote it in my head where all of the stuff Mickey Rourke was doing, Sam Rockwell was doing. Because the fact that we didn't get more Sam Rockwell is upsetting.
See, I feel he's in this movie a lot.
He didn't do anything. And what, he danced? Whoa.
He danced. He talked.
Sam Rockwell's
has
so
his
much
whole
better than
speech
this movie.
about all the guns he's gonna give Rhodey.
Yeah, but take away everything that Mickey Rourke does and put Sam Rockwell in there, and you get more Sam Rockwell. And where's the negative?
That's true. Well, I mean, you got to look at it from the perspective of, obviously, Whiplash or Ivan Vanko. He is the sort of the physical manifestation of Tony's demons. He's Tony's past. He's the heavy. He's the muscle. You're not going to get that from Sam Rockwell. He's not a big guy. He's not a fighter.
But you don't need it. You can have a smart villain. You don't have to have a big bad dog.
I know that we don't. But I'm gonna tell you, the general movie-going audiences wants to see a superhero fight a bad guy,
and they would have in the whole drone scene.
Yeah, I know, and that's
so you don't need a big bad like that when you got a smart guy who can do it. You want to have a bad guy
that you want to see get beat.
Sam Rockwell would have been that guy with all of his drone army.
Okay, whatever.
If you're trying to defend Mickey Rourke in this movie, you're the only one. Because
I'm not trying to really, honestly, I'm not trying to defend Mickey Rourke.
I'm intimidating. He adds nothing to the story.
I'm not trying to
defend
Mickey Rourke at all.
There's nothing there in that story.
If I'm trying to defend anything, I'm trying to defend the character of Ivan Vanko, because that character can work.
Yeah, but they didn't
very well.
In a different movie where he's the main focus and not a dual focus.
Where he gets more focus, I think, absolutely. Or where you introduce his collaboration with Justin Hammer maybe earlier, to kind of signify that the world is starting to close in around Tony. That Tony still views himself as this singular superhero, and the world is starting to catch up with him faster than he realizes. And it's all based on things that he's done, all based on his own bad guys that he's created, or that his father's created, or that his company's created, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's going to be a theme of the MCU for pretty much the remainder of its time. Is look at even Age of Ultron, Wanda and Quicksilver. They talk about how their lives essentially are to get back at Tony Stark. We get like Jake Gyllenhaal's character Quentin back in Spider-Man. It's just the effect of Tony Stark's company across the world. That's going to like play an impact. So they could have done both of those characters a lot more justice if they really fed more to them. But I think the movie's too concerned with finding a way to make it also entertaining, to play to traditional blockbuster tropes, to be as character driven as I think you or I might like it to be.
In the movie that I wrote in my brain while watching this, you don't lose any of the things that make it a blockbuster. You have the fights, you have the car scene, you have all of these things. You just don't have Mickey Rourke in the car crash scene. You don't need Mickey Rourke there to defeat him and be Whiplash. What you need is Tony Tony is Iron Man, right? He is just a regular guy outside of that Iron Man suit, but he feels invincible. So he gets in this car without his suit on, gets in some kind of major crash. And then the news media is like, is this the guy that we have protecting us? Just one man? He's just a guy outside of that suit. Anything can happen to him. And that has the same effect as Mickey Rourke fighting him. It doesn't change anything. You just put it in a different perspective, because then you have Justin Hammer. You have Justin Hammer who's there like, yes, give me that technology. I'm working on this too. And he's doing the backroom dealings with Gary Shandling and that character. And you have that side story, who Gary Shandling's trying to take down Tony Stark. Justin Hammer's trying to get in on this. And you have Tony Stark, who is a human being, invincible. You do not need anything Mickey Rourke brought to this table in the story.
I disagree, but what does everybody else think?
So I don't like the Whiplash character in this movie. So I can't defend that. But I do think there is one thing that changes significantly if you were to remove him, and that is the motivation between Whiplash and Justin Hammer. They have two very different motivations. And if you put them both on paper, Whiplash's motivation is more emotionally engaging. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't know. Maybe I'd rather have, because now I'm just talking freewheeling and I'm not thinking before I speak. So maybe they needed to take out Sam Rockwell and
Well,
put
that's
in
what I'm
more
saying.
Whiplash.
Two of these, like that's my point, is you can have a movie with Mickey Rourke's character and it be a good movie. Or you can have a good movie with Sam Rockwell's character. You cannot have a good movie with both of them because you do not get deep enough into either one for it to matter. They went deeper into the Sam Rockwell and the government angle, in my opinion, than they did with Ivan Vanko. I get that they talked about it, but they didn't give me enough to sell it in a way that I cared about it. I get why Mickey Rourke's mad, but like you didn't give me anything for me to care.
Yeah.
I will agree. They could have centralized their villain more.
Yeah, and I think that's just an overall problem with superhero films that choose to put two villains into the story. We see that time and time again where when two villains have to share the focus, it can be hard to find a peg to really care about because they're just competing too much. But I do think that I don't know if it was just the Mickey Rourke of it all, in that I don't think he was a good fit for this role. I've not seen a lot of his work, so I can't judge him as an actor overall. But if the only thing you show me is Iron Man 2, I think he's a bad actor.
Andrew, do you remember, did The Wrestler come out before or after this?
The Wrestler came out before this.
So they're trying to Robert Downey Jr. Mickey Rourke in this movie where Mickey Rourke went through a very similar path of Robert Downey Jr. and had the comeback of The Wrestler where he was nominated for an Oscar, and this is like the resurgence of Mickey Rourke's career. So they were like, pull him into this movie, and it did not have the same effect.
I think Robert Downey Jr. was a big part of that. He also wanted to get Mel Gibson in one of these movies.
Ooh.
I know. I think Robert Downey Jr. is very big on handing out second chances.
I get it, but some people don't deserve it.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr., as great as he is, may not always have great judgment. I think we know that very well. This man went from Endgame to Doolittle. Doolittle.
Andrew, speak. Say words.
The only thing I would say is that I think this movie, it did not do anything for Mickey Rourke's career. In fact, I think it may have killed him.
Well, maybe. Well, hang on. You keep talking.
After Iron Man 2, what was the last thing you heard about Mickey Rourke being in?
I think this same year he was in The Expendables. That's all. That I remember that as being part of his big comeback was this Expendables. He did The Wrestler, and then I don't remember anything he's been in since.
So after,
I know he's done a lot of stuff.
Well, after 2010, the only thing on his wiki page that I have heard of is Sin City 2, which you can listen to on the So Many Sequels podcast feed. If you scroll back far enough, he was in that. However, since then, the majority of his roles that I'm seeing are direct to DVD.
That's what I'm saying.
In one movie called Dead in Tombstone, he played Satan.
And it's possible that his career is been affected more so by maybe his what he's like off screen more so than it is like actual demand for him.
Yeah.
I've heard he does not have a good reputation.
Well, and to talk about The Wrestler very briefly, a like inspired performance that gets a lot of critical acclaim does not make a career for you. And he was at the stage in his career where he kind of needed a second wind. And sometimes you just do really good in a movie, and that doesn't mean you're going to do good in the next one.
Well, yeah, and by that point in his career, the expectations were very low. So I think
a lot of people
he comes in surpassing low expectations.
A lot of actors take home Oscars, and then you never hear them again.
That's true.
And
Mickey Rourke he's actually famous. He was successful before he got The Wrestler.
But also, I mean, like Mickey Rourke, if we're going to talk about Mickey Rourke for just a second, Mickey Rourke has had like the most interesting careers. he's had an interesting career. He's not been in trouble with drugs or anything. He has he has had run-ins with the law. Like he's apparently not a good guy in real life, which, he may be a good actor, but whatever. But the thing is that like if you look back at some of his other movies, some of his other movies were okay, and it's like, and then all of a sudden, he goes dormant for a little bit. At one time, he was a boxer. At one time, he was a boxer for several years, and he was doing paycheck roles. And his career resurgence didn't start until like 2000, I would say 2003, and 2008 was its peak. And I don't know what was going through his head after this movie in terms of like in terms of movie choices, but it's just like the guy just can't get a break from this stuff. It's like he gets one good movie and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I don't want to talk about Mickey Rourke anymore.
No, you know what I want to talk about? I want to talk about Natasha Romanoff.
Mm-hmm.
You mean Natalie Rushman?
Natalie Rushman.
Cody.
Scarlett Johansson.
AKA
Whatever you
Black
want to call
Widow.
her. Let's
Scarlett
always talk
Johansson
about Scarlett
Jost. Mrs.
You talk
Colin
about
Jost.
sort of. I'll tell you what. You talk about sort of having a character, sort of like right instantly. I think they did it. Like there's not been, not to say that the character hasn't grown, but I feel like they kind of nailed the mystique. They nailed the sort of the sense of competence. Like she and the story here for her, just pitch perfect. Really makes you curious to see more.
Yep. I agree with that, and it's really interesting because Natasha's not the first character or not the last character that I feel like they do that with. I mean, we also get to know Hawkeye and the Scarlet Witch and her brother, and really, what's his name? Mark Ruffalo's Hulk.
Oh,
we really are introduced to all those characters through side stories in other movies, and they all hit great, I think. And so it's very interesting how they're able to do that so well. But some of their other they can give a character their own movie and not quite hit right.
Yeah, it's strange how that can kind of occur.
Yeah, it's awesome that our first big scene with Natasha, she just beats up on Happy.
Mm-hmm.
that's just fun as hell.
Yeah. And she has this it's kind of funny because Robert, it feels like a Robert Downey Jr. improv line where she says I need an impression. He goes, "You have an old soul." I feel like somehow without this all comes down to kind of just appearance, but you get that when you say she seems like she's so much smarter than she's letting on.
Right.
And then she, fighting style really cool. She has some sweet lucha moves she throws in there.
And Happy's the least intimidating kind dude ever, and he is being excessively condescending to her at first. What do you do, Tybo? Booty boot camp? And then she just boom,
knocks him out.
She kicks his booty,
ruins him, and Pepper's wah.
It's good God.
It was great. It was great.
It makes me wish that we would have gotten some kind of. Well, I know that we got a Black Widow movie coming out, but I don't necessarily even know if I wanted a Black Widow movie. What I would have liked is some kind of a S.H.I.E.L.D. movie that incorporates Coulson, Black Widow, and Nick Fury. Mm-hmm. That is a movie that I dream of on a regular basis.
Look, not to go on a tangent, but the fact that the masses of MCU fans don't respect Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it just upsets me to my core.
100%.
They are some of the best characters in the universe, and no one really knows about them.
Oh, and you throw in,
no one watches that show.
Yeah, throw in Maria Hill too. Give me all of those characters in some kind of a movie,
and throw in Hawkeye. Why not?
Yeah, he's part of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Agent Grant Ward. I actually thought around 2014, 2015 they were going to make a S.H.I.E.L.D. movie. I thought that was a legitimate thing that was going to happen.
Would have been cool.
It ended up being. I think they'd already had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on for a season by that point, But I thought, like, say, you have your Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., sort of smaller squad. Why not a big movie? I felt like Winter Soldier kind of proved out that it would be like it could work, but ended up being even more complicated than that. And
yeah, well, and like, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I would have loved an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. movie, don't get me wrong, but I don't even know if I needed it as much as it would have been nice if some of those characters got to pop into the movies every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been swell, but that's a different show. We're here to talk about Iron Man 2.
Yeah, that's true. What did we think? We didn't really mention Jon Favreau as Happy last week, but it's a fun cameo that they explore more in the next movie. But I really enjoy Jon Favreau as
you love to see Happy. You love it. He's always a pleasure, and it's been fun watching him grow in the universe as well, from being Tony's right-hand man to being Peter Parker's like handler, essentially, especially in the aftermath of Endgame. Seeing him become a vital part of the Spider-Man movies has been fun.
Yeah,
we're just spoiling everything. Y'all have seen those movies. If you haven't, I really don't feel sorry for spoiling it.
Be strange if like you only saw Iron Man 2 out of all of them.
Wouldn't it? I feel like if you care about Marvel movies even a tiny bit, you've seen them all. And if you haven't, you probably are not listening to a podcast about Iron Man.
Yeah, the only one you haven't seen is like Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Right. Yeah, I like Happy.
Happy Jon Favreau. It works out because Jon Favreau is a legitimately good actor. So like it works out that like he casts himself in like a small role, and then when they ask if they come to him and say, "Hey, we want to make Happy a slightly bigger role," it's like, well, perfect, because he's a good enough actor, he can pull that off.
Yeah. He was very smart to do that. It was like career insurance. Even if I'm not making these movies anymore, they'll still need Happy.
Yeah, they'll call me back for Happy. You want to talk about Don Cheadle?
Yeah, let's talk about Don Cheadle. An excellent entrance when he's not only talking to Tony, but kind of talking to the viewers, where he's like, yeah, it's me. I'm here. Let's get on with it. There's no need to make a big deal about, oh, Rhodey, you look different. None of that crap had to happen. No. Yeah.
We didn't really talk about Terrence Howard. Well, we kind of talked about like why he was gone, like what happened to him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say about Rhodey in the first movie.
I enjoy Terrence Howard. I have nothing against him, but I will always pick Don Cheadle over Terrence Howard. And I think that Cheadle's got more of an edge to him than Howard. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. I just feel like Cheadle brings some kind of intensity to that role that Terrence Howard did not have.
He has more chemistry with Robert Downey Jr., I think, too.
Yeah. That is true, because I was going to say, like, Terrence, so when I think of Terrence Howard, I think of whoever he played on Empire. That dude has edge. He just was not showing it in Iron Man.
That's fair, and that's fair, because I've never seen that, so I don't know.
He can be very intense. I also think like that.
I also think of like Terrence Howard from Crash, because he was also very intense from Crash.
Nobody thinks about Crash.
I mean, I'm thinking about Crash.
You would think about like one of the worst Best Picture winners ever chosen. Get out of here. You ought to leave.
Well, I'm out.
See,
I digress.
I'll split.
What do you think of Don Cheadle, Andrew?
Yeah.
What was your question?
But what do you think about Don Cheadle?
I think Don Cheadle is a great addition, and I like his energy, and I do like his chemistry a lot with Robert Downey Jr. And I think he brings a lot more grit.
True grit.
Yep, true grit. And I think for Terrence Howard exiting, I think Don Cheadle was a perfect fit.
Well, let's be clear here. Terrence Howard did not exit. He was forcibly removed. There's a difference.
Okay.
That's true.
I'm being nice. So,
this does go in though to your complaint, both of your complaints about the movie kind of having too many storylines to focus on. You're also talking about you're introducing this idea of Rhodey becoming War Machine. You've got this Black Widow thread. You've got Justin Hammer. You've got Whiplash. You've got the government. You've got Tony. You've got Pepper running Stark Industries. So like what did you guys think about how they kind of got to the point of Rhodey becoming War Machine, which is kind of he's now at this point essentially the third superhero in the MCU at this point that we've gotten to see.
I'm fine with it because, again, I rewrote this movie in my brain and I gave deeper meanings to everything. So in my brain, Tony Stark knows what he's doing. And everything is calculated. This man is not stupid. This man is under the belief that he is dying. And he is at this point in time. So him handing over the company to Pepper Potts, calculated, smart. He trusts her. He knows that she's going to do the right thing. It's handled well. It makes sense. Him fighting Rhodes, we also learned that was on purpose. Like, he knew what he was doing. He wanted Rhodes to take that suit. He knew that Rhodes was going to do the right thing and the trustworthy man to take over for him in the event that he needed to. Even if he does work for the government and the military, Tony knows what he's doing and he trusts his friends. He handles it in a poor way, but he handles it in the Tony way. My biggest thing is that you're right. He essentially has become the third superhero in this universe. And outside of this movie, we very rarely see War Machine do anything ever again, which is a shame. He does things. Real consequence. He does things, but like he doesn't really get a chance to shine. He's just kind of like a C player. And he's not even a B player. He's a C player in this franchise or in this universe.
He looks cool, but like he has a nice moment at the towards the end of Age of Ultron. But my favorite thing is if you're kind of person who likes like drinking games or I don't know, some other kind of game on that style. During the Civil War fight at the airport, take a drink every time War Machine gets punked out. It's pretty hilarious. Dude's getting kicked, dinged around, punched, thrown, cars chucked at him. It's like everything bad happens to War Machine. Very funny. So.
Yeah.
But he looks cool. Great design. I actually think I like this design more than what we would see in later movies. He just looks bulky and huge. I love the gun on his back. It's great. I have the red eyes as opposed to Tony's blue. That's really cool.
Well, and that end battle scene with them whooping up on all the drones is the best scene in the movie. Best fight scene. Best fight scene in the movie, in my opinion. And they still reuse that shot whenever they do like compilation videos of MCU stuff. I think that was like the shot they were like planning for the whole movie was 2 Iron Man tearing through a bunch of robots. You guys have anything to add about Chi and War Machine?
I personally liked the fight between War Machine and Tony in Tony's house.
Mm-hmm.
I personally liked that, and I liked how it ended with Tony ended up being in the fire.
Yeah,
I felt like that was good symbolism.
I don't have anything to say about Cheadle and War Machine that hasn't been said, but I do think about how different Tony is in these early movies than he is toward the end. And like, yeah, Tony's funny sometimes in these movies, and he's got like a certain suave to him, but man, is he a dick. He's so childish, and it's like frustrating because now in 2020 I'm used to like the experienced, like smart, cautious, smart ass Tony, not the wizened. The wizened Tony, not this one who's like throwing parties and letting anyone play with his Iron Man suit and just being a general ass.
Yeah. And it goes to like him. The one thing that I really didn't like about this movie was him DJing in the Iron Man suit. Like that was dumb. I didn't like that.
With DJ AM.
Yeah, but I didn't like it. But what I did like is Josh, taking your analysis of Tony into this consideration, is you look at it from the big picture, and it's hard to remove yourself from knowing everything that happens.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see that he is so emotionally stunted, but you can also tell by the way that he interacts with these people that he genuinely cares about. Happy, Pepper, and Rose. Like, those are the people in his life that matter to him. And even if he's being a child, he's always got a little something in line for them, even though he doesn't know how to express it. Later, Tony would have been like, hey, Rhodes, you want the suit? This Tony is like, I'm going to fight him and make it mad. So he steals the suit and takes it to the government because that's actually what I want. But I just don't want to tell him because I'm a child who doesn't know how to handle my emotions. So it is really interesting knowing the bigger picture and seeing that evolutionary growth that he does eventually go through and knowing what happens later down the line. So I do like that. And it's just kind of fun to see this version of Tony Stark again, because you haven't seen it in a long time. You kind of forgot about it. You forgot how suave and arrogant he really was. Like, even his arrogance in the later movie is not matched the level of these two movies.
No, because it's more, because it's much more built on, like his arguably post Avengers, or, as the Avengers movie begins, his circle of trust and his circle of what he might consider family starts growing immensely. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about a guy who has been essentially orphaned since he was like 18 years old or 17 years old or something like that. And didn't really have that much, like a great relationship with his parents even before that. So you're talking about a guy who doesn't have a lot of, like, a very wide circle of trust outside of literally two people. And that just continues to grow. And as it grows, you kind of see him become more attached to preserving that. And in this movie, I guess thinks he's headed towards being done. And so, like, the two people that he trusts the most, he tries to do what he can for them. But personally, I think he has a certain level of contempt for himself that, like, he doesn't really care how he goes, Yeah.
I had something and I forgot. Go ahead. Dang it. It'll come back to me.
Well,
I was going to say,
bad. I was going to transition the conversation.
Oh, okay. I was just going to bring up the late Gary Shandling was very good. And I wanted to bring up John Slattery as Howard Stern for the first time. We would see him return a few times as well. I thought he did a good job.
I would watch a show about Gary Shandling, Senator.
If they would have gone with my version of the movie, you would have got more of them. That's all I'm saying. But no, what I was going to talk about is, again, going back to my version of this movie. You
gotta quit making your own versions of the movies. We're not talking about your made up movies.
Yeah. In this version, you get more, like, what matters is you're learning more about Tony, and you get a bigger impact from that moment of when his father is talking to him from the past.
We're going to need
in a deeper dive into Tony, that moment, that's a great moment in this movie, but that really sells it more is because that, for me, is the moment where he's like, his whole concept of his father not liking him and him being a disappointment and always just trying to strive to something to impress his father, alive or dead, changes. And that is the moment that Tony Stark changes. Like, you can think that he changes in Avengers 2, but, like, that moment begins when he hears his father saying, "You are my greatest creation, and only you can take the next step in this thing that I've started, because I don't have the technology. But you, my greatest creation, can figure this out." And that moment clicks in his brain. And it starts the Tony Stark evolution and the Tony Stark growth.
Agreed.
Anyway.
Let's talk about the very brief but exciting post-credit scene on this film.
Oh, yes.
We get a desert backdrop, a car driving down a lonely road. Out steps Agent Phil Coulson, picks up his phone. We, like, pan to reveal this deep hole in the ground behind him, and he says, "Sir, we've got it." And then we zoom out and we see Thor's hammer. Cut. That, I just threw my pen. That is how you do a post-credit scene.
That's a good tease, you think?
Oh my gosh. He says like 5 words tops in the whole thing, and we get Thor's hammer as the reveal of what's coming next. I hate that Marvel moved away from that kind of post-credit scene.
Oh,
and
they're a lot
in
more
the
jokey
later
these
half.
days.
In the later half, they're a lot more jokey. But
Or
back
they're
then,
straight scenes from another movie that's
Yeah.
about to come out.
But back then, they were like hype machines, and that is so much more rewarding than what they're doing now. And I hope now that I have some hope. I don't know that it's well placed, but now that the Infinity Saga is over and we're essentially restarting in a big way, that we can get back to some of those hints that they used to do instead of the jokes.
I think there's
meaningful stuff.
I have two things for that, because I agree that is what they need to do. But my fear is that we have reached a level in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where all of the really well-known characters are already out there. So everything that's coming in, like Shang-Chi, the Eternals, all of these other elements that we have that are about to show up, people don't really know about. They're not like super household names. And I have no issue in believing that Marvel won't get them there. But if you do the hype scene, you have to find this balance, because people aren't going to know who they are. If you just throw Thor's hammer out there, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, that's Thor.
I don't know that a lot of people did.
I think more people would know who that is. I'm going to go back to Shang-Chi just because I know that is the singular person coming up. But you throw something out there that I don't even know what Shang-Chi is really known for. But you drop a hint of whatever he's at, I think most people are like, what is that? So you have to kind of find something to get people hyped about those particular characters that may not be in the forefront of people's knowledge of Marvel characters.
Here's what I'm going to tell you, Garrett. And I'm not going to say that there's not what you're saying. I think there's a lot of truth to, but the counter I'm going to offer is that that's why there already exists, even when something is blatantly obvious, an entire subculture of what did the blank scene mean after this movie.
True.
People they put it on YouTube the day the movie comes out, what the post-credit scene for blank means, so there is ample room for, if you go and you see a movie and you go and you watch all the way to the end and you don't understand the post-credit scene, quick Google, and there's someone somewhere has already written up exactly what it is, what it's about, what it's setting up. That information is pretty easily accessible these days. And I think because nowadays, so even back then in 2010, we knew that Marvel was working on a Thor movie, and we knew that they were supposedly working on a Captain America movie at the time. So I think today, by today's standards, it wouldn't be that hard to, if you went and saw Black Widow and at the end they had something that seemingly teased an Asian American person or an Asian American bad guy or something like that, people would, I think, go, that must be Shang-Chi because I know that they're working on that. Or that must be Black Panther too because I just saw an actor I recognize, or something like that. I think there's a certain level of, it's not that hard to find out this information these days.
No, but I do. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that making those scenes for the general audience is a fatal error right away. Nowadays, everyone knows to stay to the end of a Marvel movie, but but it wasn't common knowledge then. There'd only been 3 movies. How would you really know?
Sure.
And so those scenes did not used to be for the casual viewer. They were for the Marvel fans, and making it for the casual viewer was where they went wrong.
Yeah.
It should be something specific that only a Shang-Chi fan would know, because that will get those core fans hyped up. And then, and then in 10 years, when everyone knows who Shang-Chi is and they go back and watch the post-credit scene, then their mind is blown even more. Don't make it easy. Make it hard.
Yeah.
And because also David's right, there'll be an article up in 5 seconds that will explain.
That's
what
very
it is.
true.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I make it meaningful. Make it something intriguing and something interesting. No, don't make it a joke. Make it something because this had a certain level of well, what, if you don't know what it is, you go, what is that?
Right.
Yeah, now
it looks like a hammer, but I only saw it for a second.
Yes.
Or if you know what it is, you go, if you're excited going, oh, that's Thor. That's Thor's hammer. Oh my gosh. Or something like that. I remember looking at my wife when we watched the movie in theaters, and I was like, "That's Thor," and she was like, "What's Thor?" It's like
the second
Thor, and she's like, "Well, it hurts."
The second branch that I was going to get to
was
my microphone went away. The second branch of that, what I was going to get to, is that because of these new movies coming out aren't necessarily known, is that you have to do something to get them hyped. And I don't want to see a scene from a movie. I want to see a tease. I want you to tease me and get me excited about it. So that's the good thing about like that Thor thing. It's like, even if I don't know what that is, it intrigues me enough that I want to find out. So I don't think that they should make it easy because it takes the fun out of it.
No.
Give me some mystery and get me intrigued and hyped.
Now you can do a scene from the movie if it works. This is essentially a scene from the movie Thor. Like, we get this scene in the movie, but it's framed differently. Like the presentation, it's a different presentation of a shot we actually get in the movie. So I think that's the way you do it, is you kind of find a different way to shoot a shot that has that kind of mystery about it, intrigue, or maybe reveals a piece of information that is of note. Yeah, but I think, Kenneth Branagh shot this post-credit scene. It looks different than the rest of the movie, so it really feels like something special at the end. And this is only the second time they had done one. They didn't actually do one for The Incredible Hulk. So, yeah, people weren't really, quite used to the staying after the credits, I don't think.
Right. No,
at this point.
They absolutely were not. You go to a Marvel movie today, if movies were open, and there will still be people who get up and leave. Like, that's... It's not. We have to remember. Yeah, we have to remember that, like, not everyone knows the stuff that, like, even we would know. Some people do not know who Thor was at all. Some people don't know to stay. Some people just do not think about these movies as much as we would.
Well,
they're just there for a good time.
That's right.
To add a little bit more to that, I remember when I first saw Avengers: Infinity War.
You got up and left, didn't you?
No, like three quarters of the audience got up and left.
Yeah, well, and that's disappointing because, not to talk about another movie too much, but Infinity War has a great post-credit scene that it's a good example of the recent films having a good one that wasn't a joke. That is where you get Fury and Maria Hill being dusted, and at the same time desperately calling for Captain Marvel. So there you have two main characters being killed that you didn't expect. You have them sending out a distress call for a superhero that casual moviegoers do not know who it is.
Yeah.
And then the ones who do are super excited.
And guess what? That movie's coming up next.
And that movie's coming up next.
And you'll see that one soon.
Not only are the fans excited, but I remember also thinking, now how they going to do that? Because the next Captain Marvel movie I know is set in the 90s. Now, most people don't know that because they don't read like what the stuff I read. But now my gears are really turning. That was a good post-credit scene. Anyway.
Yeah. Well,
we've already covered
I feel like we finished the movie now.
Yeah, we've already covered Avengers: Infinity War, and you can listen to that on our podcast feed.
That's right. Google so many sequels, Avengers.
So with that, I think we've expended our talk about Iron Man 2.
Wait. I have one more thing.
Oh, boy.
It's just real small. Y'all see that Olivia Munn?
Yes.
She showed up. Boom. Olivia Munn. Scared me. I wasn't ready for that. I did not know she was in this.
Yeah, she had a different part.
X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah, Olivia Munn and Kate Mara were both in this movie. And they both had different roles at one point.
I forgot the Kate Mara.
Rewrites drilled them down.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's Emily. Emily Blunt was originally supposed to be Scarlet, or was supposed to be Black Widow.
That would have been good.
Yeah.
She had to drop out.
Well,
anyway,
she got to be Mary Poppins later on, so she did all right.
So who wins?
Emily Blunt did all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, let's talk about the box office of this movie.
Let's do it. So, Iron Man 2 came out like we said, May 7th of 2010. Big opening weekend. 3-day total of $128.1 million. Huge open for that time. Now that's of course been blown out of the water by more recent films, but pretty good. In its second week at number 2 is A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 2010 remake. Brought in $9.1 million. In its 7th week, this is kind of impressive. At number 3, you have How to Train Your Dragon, the first one. Brought in $6.6 million in its 7th week. And then at number 4, you have Date Night bringing in 5.4 in its 5th week. That was Steve Carell, Tina Fey. And then at number 5, you have The Backup Plan with
The one with The Rock?
I think that's the one with The Rock.
Yeah, it is.
No, I'm sorry. This is not the one with The Rock. This is what is this? What do I stumbled upon? Well, look, who cares? The Backup Plan brought in $5 million in its 3rd week. Iron Man would go on to make $312 million in the United States and $311 million, almost equal, overseas, to bring in a worldwide total of $623 million worldwide, which is a pretty good haul. On the list of the year for 2010, anybody want to take a guess at number 1 for the year 2010?
Is it Iron Man 2?
It is not.
Is it Inception?
No, these are worldwide numbers.
Worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a
Mr.
Fast and
Worldwide.
Furious?
No.
Is it a Harry Potter?
It is not a Harry Potter, although Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows is number 3.
2010.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a sequel?
It is a sequel.
I'm going to feel stupid.
And it's a sequel we've done.
Oh, man.
Oh, is it? No, this wouldn't be that. I got nothing.
Oh, Garrett calling it quits.
I'm good.
Andrew calling it quits.
The fact that Andrew doesn't know means none of us are going to know.
I'm gonna. Well, never
Any
mind.
last guesses, Josh?
A 2010 sequel that we've already covered
Mm-hmm.
that is the highest grossing movie in the world that year.
And domestic.
It's not a Harry Potter. It can't be a Star Wars.
Nope.
It can't be a Star Trek.
No.
It's not Avatar, is it?
That's
It's
not,
not
a
It's
sequel.
not a sequel.
Nor have we covered it, you big doof.
I already gave you that hint. No, Avatar came out in 2009.
Sucker.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to give up, but I don't want to drag this out either.
I'll give you one more hint if you want it.
One more hint.
It is animated.
Oh, is Toy Story 3?
It is. Toy Story 3. If you would like to listen to our Toy Story podcast, which honestly it might have been one of my favorites that we've ever done, is the Toy Story franchise. Go check that out. It goes so many sequels. Toy Story at number 2 for the year, and this is true on both the domestic and the worldwide numbers. Number 1 was Toy Story 3 for 2010. Number 2, Alice in Wonderland, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Both of those movies would make over $1 billion worldwide. And when Alice in Wonderland did it, I thought this isn't special anymore. Making more than $1 billion worldwide.
True.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 came in at number 3. At number 4, you have Inception, making it the year's highest grossing original concept. And at number 5, you have Shrek Forever After.
What a top 5.
Those are your worldwide numbers. The only difference domestically is that Harry Potter is number 5, Iron Man's number 3, and Twilight Eclipse is number 4. On the worldwide scale, Iron Man 2 came in at number 7. Some other movies of interest that year are things like The King's Speech, Oscar winner that year, The Hurt Locker. You also had, let's see here, the remake of The Karate Kid came out that year. And another movie that we've actually already done is Grown Ups.
Grown Ups
came out in 2010. Now, I'll tell you what, fans listening or watching at home, if you're watching, if you really want to have some fun, go listen to the Grown Ups podcast with these 3, because you will never hear a funnier transition than the end of Grown Ups and the beginning of Grown Ups 2. It is hilarious how different the opinions became.
Oh, yeah.
You guys started off, you guys ended Grown Ups like, I really like that.
What a
This is
delightful
great.
surprise that was.
And Grown Ups 2, you guys went,
It's terrible.
It was a great example of a movie that never should have gotten a sequel.
Comedy sequels, man. What can we say?
I don't know. Don't put Nick Swartzen in it.
That is about it. I've only got one stat left. Iron Man 2 is, interestingly enough, if you look at just the domestic numbers, the lowest grossing of the Iron Man franchise. And if you look at the MCU as a whole, it is... Oh, wait, hang on.
Me combined. Kevin, what do you look for?
Oh, who's yelling at me?
I
Ads.
had an ad popped up.
If you look
my
at
end.
the MCU as a whole, Iron Man 2 is in the number 20 spot.
Out of 22?
20 something.
That's not great, Bob.
What's yeah?
Is this the Iron? No, this has old Spider-Man in it. Hang on. So
Yeah.
otherwise, we can move on to the Letterbox game, which Josh won last week's show.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Okay.
Gee.
So on Letterboxd, you can find our profile there. Just search for So Many Sequels if you're a member. If you're not, then I'm going to treat it like a Marvel post-credit scene and not tell you anything more about it other than you should be there. So Iron Man 2, on a scale of 0.5 to 5, where do y'all think the Letterboxd community ranked it?
I'm sorry, I want to correct myself. Iron Man 2 is 15 on the MCU overall.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's a 3.1.
Okay. Got a 3.1. Anyone want to go lower, higher?
I'm gonna go 3.3.
Oh, y'all are going
3.3,
high.
3.3.
I know. I don't want to go this. I'm kind of trying to. I don't know.
Well, so what was Iron Man? Do we remember? Does anybody remember? It was 3 something.
I think it was like 3.9.
Okay, so
It was
I don't think it's
3.7.
3.7. I'm not gonna go 3 just because of how universally panned this normally is. I'll get it close. I'm gonna say 2.8.
Yeah.
2.8.
I think it's in this range.
Okay. I'm like fighting back a sneeze that wants to come out real bad. And I know the more I talk, the more it won't come out. Okay. The winner is going to be so nobody got it dead on. Nobody got it dead on.
Lame. We all suck.
But Garrett is the closest.
Hey!
With a 2.9.
2.9. There you go.
Letterboxd. What are our individual scores going to be?
2.5 from me.
1, 2.
My version of the movie is a 3, though. I'm just saying.
You can't count your
Yeah,
version.
like your version of the movie is only moderately better than the version that came out.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I can only work with what I'm given.
You can't write a 5-star movie, Garrett?
No, not with the content that already exists. I can't write a 5-star. I can't write a half-star
what we need to do is in the future we need to have Garrett before we even do the podcast. He needs to write these screenplays that are better in his head and hand them out to us so we can compare and contrast.
They would all be the same. They would all be the same.
Make it a Patreon.
My career has been as an editor, not a creator. I take other people's creations.
You'll take
and
what
make
you
it
watch.
better.
You'll make notes, and then you just rewrite the screenplay. Use whatever you want to.
That's literally what I do in my notes right now. That's why I know my movie's better.
All right. Well, if you want access to Garrett's notes, we'll try to make that a Patreon perk.
Yeah, that's a Patreon perk. You can see everything I write.
Next.
I do give it a 3.
I would give it a 2.5.
I also give it a 2.5. And our final score is going to be 2.62. So that's gonna have to be a
rounded up to 3.
I don't think a 6 rounds up to a 3.
It's bigger than 5. Rounds up to 3.
She said.
I think it rounds down to 2.5.
2.
I think it needs to be 2.75 to round up.
Yeah. Well, I'm fine with a 2.5. That's fine.
Yeah, there it is. I knew it was coming.
Gross.
Okay. So yes, 2.5 is our final score for Iron Man. A little bit lower than the consensus on Letterboxd, but that's okay. It's in the range. It's in the range. So we'll be back next week with Iron Man 3, wrapping up our Iron Man series. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done that yet. You're on it if you're watching this. If you're not, you're probably on a podcast. So go find us on YouTube. And you can also subscribe to our podcast, and you can listen in the car or whatever you're doing. I don't know. I listen to podcasts in the car. Andrew, where do you listen to podcasts?
Almost exclusively where I listen to podcasts.
Andrew, he has no idea what a podcast is. He thinks that we're just here talking like friends. He doesn't know that it's being recorded. He doesn't understand what's happening.
I like the picture that
Andrew
Andrew prints off a vinyl of a podcast and then puts it on like an old timey gramophone.
He does.
Yeah. No, he doesn't even
Okay.
know. He doesn't. That boy don't even have a record player. He's so old. He don't know what a record player is.
You know what though? Whenever I've been at a store with him, he goes and looks at the records, even though he ain't got no player.
He got a framed record above
you
his,
like the art,
above his TV.
you
Ain't
like
got no
the art.
record player. Don't listen
you
to
know,
Pie. He don't. He's never once listened to this show.
He's
Every
quiet
time that
'cause
we
he knows
try
we're
to
not lying.
explain, every time that we try to explain what a podcast is, 6 weeks later we got to re-explain what a podcast is. He just don't get it.
Oh man, I did not think this was gonna end with us just dunking on you, but I'm
It
glad
normally
it did.
does.
Boys
Andrew,
that-
you
But
know
not
we only
always.
hate you because we love you.
I love you guys too.
Okay, now fire him.
Now he's made.
You've gone too far.
uncomfortable. You've made it. Made us all very uncomfortable. Okay,
Andrew's
find us
biting.
online: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, your favorite podcasting app, and Letterboxd. Okay, we'll be back next time with Iron Man 3. Until then,
We are some of you sequels.
The worst one he's ever done.
that is the worst one.